good, whatever it is, where you is. I am Tom Connors, and with me today is a couple of fine gentlemen here from the Great White North. We have Mr. CC Karaoke. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm in full grind mode on the channel, so that's been my life for the last little while.
I hear
Channel
you.
channel work.
Yes, and we also have joining us from south of me and CC, Mr. Nick Weiser. Chicago is going off the
Really.
fucking chains. What the hell's going on down
Oh,
there?
yeah. I know. Chicago never learns its lesson, but that's a whole other thing for that's a whole other can of worms. But no, I'll let them do what they gotta do. I'm just gonna have my popcorn and laugh at all of it because, well, they did
Yeah.
it to themselves. Anyways, yeah, happy to be here. Hello to our excellent chat. Of course, to our mods, D-Bud, Goddess of Win. Thank you all for wrenching it down, deleted scenes. Thank you guys. Yeah, Tom, CC Karaoke. Good to hang out with both of you gentlemen. We have a great double header tonight between this and Toxic Tuesday in a few hours.
He's the double head. Yes. Yes, indeed. Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy, or are you gonna bite?
This is bad. This is bad. Is it bad?
It's already a
As
three-way.
opposed to good?
Yes. We are going to be watching, well, not watching, but talking about Reservoir Dogs tonight on Toxic Tuesday, the first film directed by Quentin Tarantino. So I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorites.
It actually is one of my favorites ever, but I'm gonna save it for later. But yeah, that's a whole great freak of greatness, and maybe obviously it's easy attraction because it's a crime flick, and I've always been attracted to crime flicks, even though this is more of a whodunit story. I still see it as a crime flick first with a dash of whodunit. But yeah, whole other conversation because we got some news to talk about. Some that is interesting and some that seems to be good for fans of certain shows.
Yeah. How do I know you're not the fucking rat? Now you're starting to make sense.
Dude,
Section 31 has fans?
Oh, CC. Tagged a couple of cops. He killed me. A few cops. No real people, just cops. I like it. No real
people. Yeah.
That line makes me laugh.
Well, let's get into the super chats here. We got one so far from Waddle D's Nuts. Looks like part 1 of 2. So we got more incoming. He's warning us at least. Waddle D's Nuts says, "Sup, bros? Just thought Max sounds like a streaming service Goofy made for his son in effort to bond with him. Hey, Mac, I made a new service just for you. It's got your name on it." Oh, Dad.
That was a really great
Max.
show. You know, when I did sign up for Disney Plus, that was the first show I went to, and then I saw that they'd cropped it to 16:9, and I canceled.
Oh,
that's why I canceled Disney Plus. Not even Star Wars. That was the reason.
Waddle D's Nuts then it comes in with the part 2. Hiya, Maxie. I made a new streaming service for you. Kind of was ahead of him there, but thank you, Waddle D's Nuts. And that brings us up to speed on the super chats thus far. Let me double check we ain't got no member chats yet. We do not. So, as we're waiting for any other members to join us here, I guess let's get into the first bit of news. Where should we start with this?
You decide, Beavis.
Because as you see from my name here, I'm the pooper scooper. And if you've seen the thumb, yeah. Scoops, I did it again. I had a few scoops of sorts. Some have yet to really completely come to fruition, but fast and furiously, they seem to be that way. Let's start with this one, since this is the least fun of the bunch to probably talk about. Okay. Not only has Jonathan Majors now been dropped by his agent, he's no longer agency and managers. He's no longer going to be in the upcoming. He had like 3 projects that were upcoming. He's no longer be a part of. One is called The Man in the Basement. and he's been cut from a Texas Rangers ad. The other one was a biopic. I'm trying to remember who it was. Otis Redding. That's it. So yeah, not looking good for Jonathan. They're still claiming Marvel hasn't made any decisions or talked about it, which I call bullshit. I have a feeling that one of my scoops is going to come to fruition real soon, and we've learned that Majors has also been dropped from the Marvel universe. So what says you guys? CC, what do you got to say to this?
I'm not surprised. This has happened with every case pretty much leading up to now. And I can see the challenge.
Yeah,
The more they wait, the longer any of these companies wait, the more they invest. So I can understand the safety of pulling back. It's just like every damn time they get egg on their face when it turns out to not be anything as bad as what it appeared to be. And maybe this will be the exception, but it's now the exception.
yeah. Nick, what do you say to this?
Like CC said, there tends to be a lot of cases, especially in the last 6, 7, 8 years, where they do this stuff and they end up being wrong. And here's the thing: I actually don't understand the safety of it, because we are going off of people who are saying they are seeing the evidence, and we hear that a lot with all these cases. We've heard with Depp, we've heard with Manson, we hear with the Rick and Morty writer. And yeah, we might have an exception here, someone who might actually be guilty, but right now it just all sounds like hearsay. And to me, it's like, show me the evidence, because the more I see stuff like this, the more it starts to make me actually think that he's actually innocent, because we're doing this all off hearsay, and yet Ezra Miller has all this proof of records and video, and not one company drops him from anything. Not one. And yet here Majors is everyone's just firing at him. It does. This
Yeah.
contradiction blows my damn mind. So,
Well,
well, who knows? Like I said, maybe I'll end up wrong and he might actually be guilty. But as of now,
yeah.
I think he might actually. I think he has a chance of being innocent.
And that's fair, and I want to believe he's innocent before, you know, believe innocent until proven guilty kind of situation. There's some differences here between, I would say, Johnny Depp especially,
Mm-hmm.
and Ezra Miller even, and I'll expand on that in a moment here. I'll start with Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, I mean, basically, he wasn't charged with anything. Um, so Jonathan was.
Mm-hmm.
The other
That's
side of
true.
this is you have his defense lawyer going, there's this and this and this for evidence. It's like, well, let's see it. We haven't seen it. The only thing they released is a couple of texts that didn't really exonerate Jonathan in any way. I wouldn't say it necessarily made it any worse than it already was in that respect, but that's however the individual wants to interpret it. But if there's supposed to be video, let's see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious as to why that hasn't come out for whatever reason. And as far as Johnny Depp goes, when the allegations were made, the big difference I'm seeing between Johnny Depp and Jonathan Majors is Johnny Depp had all sorts of people come out in defense of him, right? He had all kinds of support from all out of the, even people you wouldn't imagine, like his exes and stuff. We're all going,
Yeah.
that's not the Johnny I know, So he had a lot of that, as opposed to Majors, who has the opposite, right? He's got 4 or 5 news stories coming out of the woodwork, and a lot of people sounding a lot like they did when they would talk about Kevin Spacey, or some of these other guys, Weinstein and whatnot, where Bill Cosby, whatever. I'm not saying that he's of the sexual nature so much, but the assault side of things, where they're like, or the abuse side of things, or what have you, where they're like, oh yeah, about time somebody says something, or we all knew, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't look good either. So here's the thing is I'm getting to is like, I'm not trying to condemn the man before he's even had his day in court, but I would love to see the evidence that exonerates him. Cause I, unlike you, Nick, I don't think it exists. If anything, I think the evidence damns him even more. And that's why I think everybody is jumping ship. That's my speculation. But I heard
Okay.
less than a week ago that he's been dumped from the MCU. Now he's been dumped from all these
Oh,
other
I'm not
projects.
surprised.
His agents dumped him. We heard that this morning. That probably happened over the weekend or Friday or something, or even sooner than that. Clearly, everybody is getting as far away from this guy as they can right now. Disney is the only one who's kind of still standing silent. And the only reason I think that is because they got a couple projects that are coming out yet that I still think he's involved in that they would either have to go back and reshoot him out of or what have you, which I'm not so sure they're going to do that. But I do think that's why they've made their choice. And that's why I heard that rumor is because they probably have something else coming up here that they need to have, Kang in, and they got to recast him. So we'll probably hear of a recasting before anything, I bet. But I'm with you guys on the sense of like, it's really sad that just an accusation can go this far. But in this case, there's charges involved. So this is a little deeper than some of the others. Ezra Miller is a great example of, rules for thee and not for me. I'm not going to argue with that either. But here's the exception, and this is where I said I was going to get to with Ezra Miller, at least in my opinion. The exception, I think, between Ezra Miller and Jonathan Majors, other than the obvious being, clearly Ezra Miller is a they, them, and by, and all that kind of crazy stuff, whatever you want to apply to it, that Jonathan Majors may not have necessarily come out yet, but we're not going to say he's not going to because that would be a great defense for him. So that seems to work.
Isn't that sad? He could just change one of those
The
things
big
right now.
difference
And
is even if
boom.
he does that, Nick and CC, even if he does, the thing he doesn't have on his side that Ezra does is the whole mental stability thing. Ezra has that to lean on still, to where he can come out and say, sorry, folks, I went off the freaking deep end and went on, how many times have we seen actors have one of these moments and they just got to come back with some interview and explain that they had some mental breakdown and everything's fine then. Because people can empathize with that. They can forgive somebody who's having a mental breakdown. They're going to have a hard time arguing Jonathan Majors is having a mental breakdown with all the evidence and everything that's come out and what we've seen and all that kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it's going to be real tough to because he's not out there doing the kind of shit that Ezra's doing, right?
and Johnny Depp is a real pleasure, or at least it seems that's his reputation. And when you see him on screen and with the way people talk about him, I think there has to be a separation though. Maybe Jonathan Majors is a bit of a censored words, but that doesn't necessarily make him a woman beater, right? You can be really difficult to work with,
Right.
but not necessarily be criminal or felonious. That being said, if he's a challenge to work with, then maybe that is just enough, and you can take an excuse. Because
Yeah, but many actors are a challenge to work with. That's kind of
Yeah.
commonplace. Like, think about
Right.
Bill Murray.
Well-
We hear endless stories about him being a pain to work with. But here, though, he gets the job done, so they don't.
Bill
argue
Murray's
with
kind
the
of
results.
at a higher level than Jonathan Majors
I
has
know.
proven to
Well,
I'm
be.
and
just
it's
saying,
not that
just
we're
think-
hearing stories
all I'm
about
trying to
Majors
say is
being
it's
difficult
common.
on the set so much as we're hearing individuals say that, yes, I know somebody who was in a relationship with him, or know somebody or seen it myself, his abusive behavior, right? Like, that's the difference. We're not even hearing like, oh, he's just difficult to work with on the set, or he just, gets a little worked up and screams and hollers at people. There's the typical bullshit where you'll hear of an actor going, you don't look them in the eye. Don't say
Yeah,
anything to
right.
them. That kind of thing. That's a little different than abusive behavior, right? Like, that is
Yes.
a specific thing. So like, or not so much specific, but it's a kind of thing that gives you okay, that's a little different than just being difficult, like you guys were just saying there. Yeah.
Let's not forget, too, there are times where no one will say anything bad about someone, and as soon as something goes wrong in their life, you'll have people who love to come out of the woodwork saying, "I always knew so and so was a bad person all along."
Exactly, right?
So it's like
that's a real
it's they
danger,
don't-
yeah.
and that's another thing we have to keep in mind too. Like, this right now, this case
absolutely.
seems to have many holes, and if they're going to charge him, they better have legitimate reason to charge him, not just once again
Well,
public opinion that they formed around
as
this.
somebody who had
We've seen that happen.
actual abuse allegations lobbied against him online, mind you, if you guys remember what I'm referring to here, I'm not going to get into specifics. Yes, I think that is very clear. It needs to be different to differentiate between what abuse is and what getting yelled at for not doing your fucking job is, or just pissing somebody off on the wrong day is, right? There's a big difference between all those things. Abuse is a systematic thing, right? Like, it's an abuse of power. It's an abuse of somebody's vulnerabilities, whether they be, whatever their situation they're in. Like, that's where I look at it as, is the words that people are using, the type of stories we're hearing. This is going to cause anybody pause. And again, I believe in the whole, innocent until proven guilty thing 110%, but I also got to understand where Disney's coming from, and they're just kind of, you know, to be fair to Disney, I hate to put it this way, they're being consistent. They're not Warner Brothers. They haven't been giving anybody any preferential treatment across the board outside of James Gunn, who's the only exception here that I think there could be an argument made, because that was something that was so off the fucking charts and off the wall that, you know, it doesn't even fall in the same category here. And even the Roseanne situation's kind of fuzzy even in this, but it's still consistent with what they've done. I wouldn't be surprised if MCU follows suit with the rest of these other deals, because it's just too much baggage right now. And that's not to say he can't come back, but I don't know if he will. That's going to rest solely on if he's innocent or not, right? Like at this point, that's where he's at. There's no saving his career at this point unless he's innocent. If he's not innocent of these allegations, then he is fucked, and he ain't got to worry about jail, because jail's just like a slap on the wrist probably compared to the fact that he's going to lose his entire career over this whole thing. So, and this guy was a big up and coming thing, and for Disney, this is a big kick to the nuts at a time when they just don't need it. So I can see them just saying, you know what, I don't want to fucking deal with this. Like, this is the last thing we need to deal with on our plate right now. This guy has gotten himself into a position, sorry to say, adios. You know, that's
It's
one
an
thing
easy out for
Disney's been
Disney, too,
consistent
yeah.
with. Yeah.
With the multiverse, it's a really, really easy out to just recast
You didn't even
him.
have to do that. But I get everybody's been saying that. But like, they just replaced Rhodey without a fucking.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
they did it with the
Like,
Hulk.
And that was
Bruce
over
Banner,
a contract dispute. That wasn't even anything serious, right? Like, that's
Soon to
like,
be Thunderbolt Ross as well.
well,
with
that was
Harrison
over a
Ford.
death. But like, my point is like, yeah, this is, I could see Disney and Marvel seeing the situation as, yeah, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. They may even be considering what they're going to do with what has been shot already, because we know he's in almost every episode of Loki season 2, and I don't know when that's dropping right now. Somebody remind me, because I have a feeling it's going to be in the midst of all this shit being in the headlines. So that's just the last thing they fucking need, because as I pointed out on I think the morning show, I said the last thing Marvel and Disney want right now is their name associated in the headlines with that crap. Because if they get him out of the equation before then you don't have to worry about Marvel star or MCU star, Disney star, you know, and then whatever the court case was going on that day, like we had with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right? Because how often do we see Aquaman star with Amber Heard? Because nobody knows what she is, right? Yeah, but anyway, I'm it's sad because I'm of two worlds on this. I understand the business side of it, but I also feel bad for Jonathan because due process, right? It's too sad. So yeah, this is coming out already summer of this year. So yeah, right in the midst of this shit.
Yeah, one of the variants from like the 1920s or something like that, a timely variant, is supposed to be in season 2.
Well,
I saw how he
were you watching
looked
the
for
birthday
scene, and
party
I don't know how
earlier?
big his part was.
Did you watch the birthday party earlier?
Fortunately, I did not catch it because I was at work.
Yeah, I think Script Doctor had the best take on this. You just bring over what's her face who plays Amanda Waller. What's her name? Help me out here. Viola Davis.
I know here.
You bring Viola Davis over here, and she can play the woman Kang.
I guess she's silly. They might she did. I mean, they did do that with Batwoman. I mean, they tokenized the tokenized character with Batwoman. That makes I would, or they could even take what's her face from Loki. Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy. What was her name? I gotta think.
Lady Loki.
Oh, Ravonna Renslayer. Renslayer. It could be Ravonna Renslayer. They can make her Kang too. They might do that. I would not put past if she's like the female version of Kang, because she was in season 1. She was the one who had her hair put back. Worked with Owen Wilson a little bit.
I didn't watch that.
And she was a love interest to Kang the Conqueror in the comic books. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if they bumped up her old season 2 anyway. So they might just reshoot it to where she somehow becomes Kang or something. Who knows? I'm just speculating.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Warrior Justice says, what do you call a gay drive-by a fruit roll-up? Oh, Lord. I don't even know if that deserves that one. That one's probably your worst one yet, Warrior. Work on that one. Midnight's Edge. Oh, this is a member chat from Old Man Cometh. Says, sorry, I have to cancel my membership. My aunt died and I lost my job. I'm so sorry to hear that, Old Man Cometh, and that's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat. You know, these things happen, and we totally understand. We're glad you could support us when you can, and when you can't, it doesn't mean we love you any less, of course. And I'm really sorry to hear about your aunt. But no worries about that, brother. None at all. Waddle These Nuts says, wait, I have the Major's replacement. I'm Larry the Cable Gang. If you want to take over the multiverse, consume Prilosec.
Wow.
Is Larry the Cable Guy really doing Prilosec commercials now? Oh, wow. Waddle These Nuts also says, on a more serious note, you think Disney would release a replacement cut for Ant-Man 3 if they got a new actor or actress? No, but I think it's really interesting to think of. I mean, it's kind of got to be too late now if Loki 2 is supposed to be out this summer to really do anything with that. I mean, they're kind of stuck with him in that at this point.
Unfortunately, they've got much bigger problems than Jonathan
Right.
Majors at this
I
point,
think
too.
so.
I mean, if Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is not tracking, that's supposed to be the one, oasis.
Yeah,
It's damaged. It's
Yeah.
that far damaged right now.
I think so. Gonzalo Bergali says, na 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 na, Majors, goodbye. That's for CC too. I feel like that. But no, this actually goes along with like Kevin Feige's been out talking about. I think he's kind of realizing something's up with the Marvel Universe and he's got to make some changes. I just hope it's in the right direction. Because he's almost signifying that he's got to get some more experienced directors in here. And he doesn't want to have to hold their hand through this, which I hope is basically code for, yeah, I done fucked up. And I got to get some people who know what the hell they're doing because I suck now. And I got to get back to formula.
I don't even think, even if he gets experienced directors, I mean, I get the idea of wanting the directors to be hired guns to a point. I think the crappy thing is they're just having directors who absolutely say nothing at all, period. Because even when you had like the Russo brothers involved or a Joss Whedon, they, obviously they're names that we know and recognize and mostly love, but ultimately they're still hired guns at the end of the day. Maybe they might push back a little more and try to fight for a few things more, but they're still going to be ultimately hired hands at the end of the day. And that's fine to a point, especially if you want to maintain a continuity. But I don't know if the directors want to do that. They're going to get names involved. Are they going to want to stick with a continuity, or they're going to try to fight for stuff that they want to do to make it their own? Because especially if it's going to be a connected universe, I would assume Feige, to his defense, is going to want to keep it connected. And that was one of the big issues that Edgar Wright had with Feige, was the self-containedness versus continuity, which I understand both of their points of view. I do, but I actually did glad that Feige, stuck to his guns and kept Ant-Man in continuity.
Well, if he understands the problem, then hopefully, Nick, I think what he means by it is he's going to go back to formula. And what I said that is hopefully back to the earlier Marvel films where you had Jon Favreau, you had, what's his face who did Thor, Kenneth Branagh, and you had Joe Johnston, and you had, Whedon and whatnot. They brought their own voice to it while it was also still part of the same universe. It's still, for the most part, they sat on their own. Hopefully that's what he's going to get back to, is realize that, oh shit, I've done alienated, like the Russos, for instance. They won't come back and work for him for those reasons.
Oh, they're donezo.
And we've heard about that with a lot of these other guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing. If Feige doesn't make the move now, guess where they're all going to hop to? Warner Brothers.
Exactly. And that's why I think he's got to learn, or it's tough shit too late, right? Like, I agree with you 110% then. Like, it's a
what he's got going
situation
for him
now.
Is, amidst all of this in phase 4 and 5, they focused on nothing characters. They haven't wasted the Fantastic Four or the X-Men storylines yet. They haven't even really started them. There's an opportunity between the multiverse and the snap, if they were really smart, and the fact they haven't used those higher level characters to really just take off and start, but they have to commit to it. And they still have to turn that ship around because they got a whole bunch of crap projects in production coming out as is.
Yeah.
I don't even care initially when I had heard about the Phase 4 announcement. I didn't even care, honestly, that they were going for lesser known characters. I think that's fine, especially for a guy like me. I come from the place, the weirder and more out there, the better. I'm all in on that. But when you see the projects and they just look like crap, they talk like crap, and it just is like you don't recognize it. And that's what is the real turn away for me is that they're just not good. Because I think a lot of people can forgive if it's not good. Because yeah, let's just pretend we lived in a world where Soy Chi was actually Shang-Chi. And sure, the movie didn't do the best, but what if people end up actually liking it? And I'm not talking about the 5 people that did, but far more than 5. What if it did well? And then all of a sudden the second movie had better opening numbers? Kind of like how the first Captain America and Thor movies, those opened like what, 60 something $million each. But then look at their sequels that followed. They all did, a lot better as they went on. So start small, go big. They could have done that with Shang-Chi, but no, they wanted the soy. And well, we all suffered the effects of the soy.
Yeah. Well, we had a couple member situations going on here. Gonzalo Bergali gifted 5 Midnight Edge After Dark memberships. Thank you so very much, Gonzalo. We appreciate that. Then Pete Dencat, who's been a member for 4 months, says, no way, I've got a milestone chat on here too? That's 2 today. Oh dear, still only 150 characters. I'm not sure I can deal with the pressure. Oh shit. And he ran out of letters again. Next time, Pete Den, you'll get it. Okay. You gotta plan ahead of time what you're gonna member chat. I love that bit. That's hilarious. All right, now we've got some Star Trek news, and I know people want to get to that, but we're gonna hold off on that because I might have a guest coming in to talk a little bit about that. So let's jump ahead to the Yellowstone news. I don't know if you guys are Yellowstone fans or not, so I apologize if you're not. But the only reason I'm
No,
really bringing it, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's good for those in the chat because I do see a lot of people in chats comment about it. So all the more reason to go off it. We have people in our show
Oh,
who love it.
and good timing for Mr. Casino because I know he is a big Yellowstone fan like yourself, or at least a
Yeah.
Sheridan fan anyway.
Yeah, I'm a Taylor Sheridan fan.
And he can also back me up that I had a little scoop
Yes.
on Yellowstone that's been backed up here now by this outlet and I think a few others that it looks like Yellowstone will most likely end with season 5.
Yep.
And this came independent of my reporting later last night, or in the afternoon, I should say. Basically, from the ins and outs that I'm hearing, the short version is that Sheridan and Costner still haven't quite worked things out. So the way things are going right now, they're probably going to end the show with season 5, and then the spinoff will come off of that. Most likely sans Kevin Costner and whatever other characters don't survive the rest of the season, let's say, if that were to pass. That's the most likely scenario. But the other thing we're hearing now is basically Kevin's side of the story, and I think this came from his lawyer or management, one of the two, basically saying that there's mutual respect. They're more than willing to work with Sheridan, but the reason there's a dispute or an issue is because Sheridan's too busy. And when Costner was ready to shoot season 5 for the time that he had set aside for it, Sheridan wasn't ready to shoot yet. So I guess he was waiting around a little longer than he wanted to be. And that's what caused the rift to lead into the second half of season 5, which, for those who don't know, they split season 5 up into 2 parts, and the second half has not been filmed yet.
Yeah.
But it sounds like now that may be a point where they bring the show to an end and then most likely spin it off into a series, which makes sense to me because I've been saying that this way then they can put it on Paramount Plus and they don't have to worry about the Peacock bullshit because Peacock has Yellowstone exclusively for the next 4 years. So I'm glad Culture's joined us too on top of this because you've been following this along with me.
Oh yeah. I can't believe, dude, you've had like 5 scoops come true in the last I
wouldn't say
days.
Come true, but at least they're looking likely. Like the Jonathan Majors one is looking likely.
Yeah.
The other part of this, if this is true, is the 1928 bit. But anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's been interesting behind the scenes, and you know what? His rep, Costner's rep's not wrong. I mean, Sheridan's just too busy. I mean, he's really trying to be a one man show on too many different projects, and that's got to be difficult. I wish Script was here to talk about how just writing 1 or 2 shows a year is really hard, let alone 4 or 5. So
yeah, and he's kind of Paramount's golden boy right now too. That's the thing.
yeah. So I mean, he's got to go lock himself up in a closet up north somewhere and just write for like 3 weeks straight, and hand out assignments from there, I would imagine. But
well, somebody who probably sits in Snowdub's closet, and he's not our golden boy, but he is a blue boy.
Oh,
Jolly.
there he is. What's up, Jolly?
Oh, hey, sorry I'm late, guys. I was taking a bath, and the spin cycle took forever.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Again?
Well, Snowdub's hand gets kind of musty.
Oh boy.
Whoa.
Yeah, I imagine a big heavy glove.
Are you saying you have a hot ass?
Well, that's what the ladies say. Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So yeah, so that's the situation with Yellowstone. For those fans of Yellowstone,
Yella.
There's a bit of a bright light to the tunnel. Let's say there's a writer's strike going on right now, or imminent. Let's say
Yay.
imminent. And there's people saying that the writer's strike could, in fact, impede the show, and then that might help things work out in the other end of this. But I don't think Paramount's going to give a shit either way, because I think they're more than happy if they can spin the show off so they can put it on Paramount Plus.
Oh yeah. They'd love to have that. They'd love to pull that out of Peacock's little clutches.
So yeah, Culture, go ahead and take the floor, and then you guys can go around about and give us your opinions on this.
You know what? Either way it would work out. And I feel like the one thing that I would find interesting is if a writer strike does come to fruition, which it will. The WGA voted overwhelmingly 97.2 or 97.8% or whatever it was reported to strike. So the strike authorization is out there. So that could actually let the show have a little breather so that Costner could come back and everything could get sorted out. Because I think this was set for 7 possibly. So we'll see. But if they do end up, spinning out Costner and going with something new, that would pull it out of Peacock's clutches. And that also wouldn't be a bad thing. Ultimately, I mean, Paramount right now, they have a lot of great film projects in the, coming out in the near future, and their television is dominated by Sheridan. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But my thoughts are in line with yours, Tom, as I said before. We will have we'll have this resolve itself amicably, and at the end of the day, Yellowstone will continue on in some different fashion. So,
yeah, I'm thinking so. Jolly, since you're new to the panel, are you a fan of Yellowstone? Do you have any takes on this? Or
I'm a fan of Costner. I like most of his movies. He kind of had a fall off point there with Waterworld, but he did a couple gems a lot of people don't know about, like Mr. Brooks. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It's really good.
I kind of remember it.
Yeah, it's kind of a horror thriller. It was different for him, but it was good. But I haven't watched Yellowstone yet, but I've had it on the list because everybody keeps telling me about it. But this kind of disgruntles me a little bit about watching it now, especially since I've heard Costner kind of stepped away from the show. Is that true?
Well, it appears that's what we were kind of discussing here. There's some head butting going on, at least respectable head butting, depending on pretty much according to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to do with some scheduling conflicts, and I have 2 sides on this. Like I too am a bit of a Costner fan. I do enjoy his films. I know he can be a bit of a prickly prune to deal with, though.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some horror stories about him. And on the other end, you're right. It wasn't. I mean, Waterworld wasn't really the movie that that's the one that most people pinpoint. But the movie that really killed his career was The Postman.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one that most people forget about.
I like that
Waterworld
one
actually
too.
made some money, but like Postman and Wyatt Earp were the 2 that really kind of put the nail in the coffin for quite a few years. And he had some highlights like the one you just mentioned, Mr. Brooks, and some other ones. But I mean, I really looked at it like Yellowstone was kind of his comeback. And I think he owes a lot to Taylor Sheridan as far as that, because like at this point, who was making Kevin Costner movies? Nobody. Like, when's the last big Kevin Costner movie? I can't think of one either. It'd be Mr. Brooks, like you said, or maybe 3,000 Miles to Graceland or something like that, because it has been a tick since he's had a pretty big movie. And so now what happened is he got this opportunity with Warner Brothers to direct what he's been saying was like a dream Western project for him. And I guess his management was saying that he was ready to shoot the first part of season 5, and he had to wait around for Taylor because he wasn't ready yet. So they did the first half, and now he's limiting his availability for the second half because he's doing this movie, and that is where the conflict comes in. But Taylor's also saying that while you promised me, I think it was 2 weeks for the shooting, and then he's only going to give him 1. Isn't that what it is? Culture, something like that?
Yeah. He wants to shoot over the course of 1 week, not necessarily 5 days, but 1 week. Yeah. And you can't blame him. He's looking to get this thing wrapped because he's got other stuff in the hopper, which he has other stuff in the hopper because of this show. So, it's a good faith play on Costner's part to some extent, right? And he has to set boundaries because obviously, as mentioned here, Sheridan is busy. That's just the way it is. So.
Yeah, I see both sides of this argument, and I feel bad for both parties because both, I feel like, does kind of owe each other much respect and good faith, right? Like, and maybe the writer's strike will be the one thing that helps this situation out. Because if that happens and they aren't able to get the second half of season 5 done in time, or it's not written out, or however you want to look at it, they could take a little bit of a hiatus. Costner can finish shooting his film, get that all completely done and over with. And at that point, maybe he'll be all on board for another 2-3 seasons. Maybe he'll be ready to sign on. But again, the incentive isn't necessarily there for Paramount because Sheridan has proved with these other shows, he doesn't necessarily need Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner wasn't the magic sauce here, right? It's Taylor.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't argue that much. And I agree with you, Jolly. Like, Costner deserves some more respect, but at the same time, I think Costner needs to remember that the reason he's back where he's at in this position is because of this show. So,
you know what? Actually,
kind of a double-edged sword.
Let me add one more thing. Costner did a great comeback in Draft Day, the film about the Cleveland Browns draft.
Did it actually make any? I don't remember that making
it made money. It wasn't an overwhelming box office success, but it did.
Well, let me put it to you this way: I remember when he was playing Pa Kent in the Man of Steel movie and shit, for instance. Like that's when you've reached that level of has been to a point, not quite has been, but you're not a material anymore.
I'm actually shocked we haven't spotted him in a Tarantino movie yet. I don't
know if those two could get along, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Those two can forget about it.
I think he'd be a lot like Warren Beatty. So I think Tarantino also had designs in putting Warren Beatty into Pulp Fiction or something like that back in the day, and he met him and they didn't really get along, I don't think, or something like that. So I wonder if they would, because I think that's the problem. You get certain guys like him that are director actors and they're tough to direct.
Well, I hadn't seen Don Johnson in forever, and then all of a sudden he popped up in Django, and I was like,
that makes more sense to me. See, now that's
the
problem I have with Don Johnson is every time I see him in anything, it's like I can only see his character from Django.
Right. But it was good.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
He played an awesome Southern plantation owner.
He's hilarious.
Well, yeah.
You just treat him like I love that bit where he's trying to just figure out how to say it. And
how did he get up on that nag? Oh, that's a great movie. Yep. But I think we should see Tarantino pull out a couple more, old actors we ain't seen in a while. Because if he's going to do one more movie, I want a couple surprises. And I'd love to see Costner in there. Costner's a great actor. I don't care how you slice it. The guy's got more hits than he's got losses. I mean, if you go back and look at his record, the boy can act.
Oh, I like him as an actor. I like him.
Yeah.
I mean, even through the stories that I've heard about the guy over the years, I do still like him. But
well, and 3 days was pretty good. I'm sorry, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Well, what
You
about you,
know,
Nick? You and CC have been quiet here. Nick, what do you think about this?
Good news for those who are fans. Unfortunately, it's something I'm not familiar with, but I have obviously tons of friends, coworkers, family who are all pretty nearly universal on this, and I'm happy for them that they get to get their share of Yellowstone, and hopefully it sticks the landing for them.
CC?
I think this is going to work out in the end. There are always exceptions to the rule, but you do want to be careful that you don't go on too long.
Mhm.
You know, like a band that starts just kind of like getting old on stage and they're not what they used to be, or a television show and it gets to 8 or 10 seasons and you start realizing it's okay, it has its good moments, but it's really just kind of started to flag. So forcing them to stop at 5 seasons and knowing that they haven't written those last episodes, maybe they have written them, but they haven't committed to filming through them yet, gives them the chance to wrap it up well, to put their big ideas into it, to go out with a big bang, and they have these other spin-offs. It's become a franchise at this point, and I love Kevin Costner, but you're right, Tom. They don't need him, and there's no reason to get fatigued. Take all the time you want. You can come back as long as you don't kill off Kevin Costner. You can come back to his story in a few years if you want. You know,
I'll even go one step further and say that his death in the story might serve a better purpose than him continuing on.
sure.
I mean, this is coming from somebody who's been an avid fan of the series now for about a year or so, getting caught up and then watching season 5. It's kind of hit that lull where you kind of got to have a change of some sort.
And they've proven that they can branch this off into other generations successfully. So pursue that.
Well, and overall, if you ever watch the show, like the daughter is kind of more of the focal point anyway, really, when you start to realize it. And it's kind of set up that way from the start. You just don't realize it until you get going. You're like, oh, okay. Because like and I can see her kind of being more of the focal point of a spin-off show after he's gone. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with here. I'm not totally adverse to losing him, but I'd hate to see him go. But unless they come up with some better stuff for him to do, like I'm saying, is I think he might serve a better purpose as, you know, as maybe leaving the show altogether. But, you know, it's not spoilers. Johnny already is. So. Or no, he's governor. That's it. Yeah, he could become a senator, but that would take him maybe too far away from the mothership, perhaps. But that could get him out of the picture for a while, like CC was saying. That's true. I didn't even think of that. So there you go. Let's see here what you guys are saying. Warrior Justice says, dark humor is like a kid with cancer. It never gets old. Oh, do you want me to make a banana cry? Dalai Lama, a tearjerker, is a man pulling his meat cry.
Yeah, wow. Never mind treading the line. You just leapt right over it.
Yeah, he did. Warrior Justice then says, knock, knock, who's there? Not the Twin Towers. Oh. Yeah, I don't mind some dark humor. It's all right. I'm not asking you to apologize. Just some of them might need a rewrite or two. That's all.
Yeah, we need more humor. That's all, you know.
Yeah, I'm not against doing humor, even dark humor. But yeah, I was trying to hold off on this news, but since we have nothing else to go on right now, we're going to get into it, and hopefully our guest will join us shortly. But I was the bearer of bad news on this one. This is one that actually did come to fruition. Full bore. I warned people that Star Trek Section 31 is going forward. And not only has it been announced today, but we found out it's going to be a movie. Because I've learned my sources realize that when he hears event now, it doesn't mean series or limited series like initially thought. Because speaking of Yellowstone, that's what they referred to like 1883 and stuff to as an event series. So that's where they were thrown off. So at least it's just one movie we got to deal with for now.
I think culture needs a pull out of us.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You gotta leave?
Yeah, I didn't want
Where
to.
Are you going?
This is fun stuff. Now, real world calls, so I got to run out.
For crying out loud!
I may be back. Don't cry for me, Argentina.
We will try too hard.
The truth is, I never left you. All right, see ya. Bye.
Ooh. Yeah, take care. So what is going on here? Well, it appears that Kurtzman has got his wish, and Section 31 is finally happening. Now, before anybody is quick to jump to blame, Picard for this happening and all that stuff. No, I was hearing about this before Picard even dropped. I heard this was something they were pushing hardcore for. And kind of when she had won the Oscar, it was kind of like a do or die situation. And CBS was finally, gave the green light. And it was a situation where her time is limited. She got an executive producer role. And I also have a little bit to add to this. I don't know what's all in this article here because I haven't got a chance to read it, but I don't know. Let's see here. Paramount is officially moving forward on Section 31 project starring Michelle Yeoh. It will now be an event film instead of a series. Variety has learned. It is first reported that Section 31 series with Michelle Yeoh was developed back in 2019, and this is true. But as I said, it didn't come to full bore head green light until she won the Oscar. And she just had a statement about being beyond thrilled. So did Kurtzman. Yeah, they mentioned that she won the award. I'm just kind of looking to see if they give you the budget or anything like that because I have a budget. All right, kids. Because if you'll remember, part of the reason I announced this is there was a tax incentive given to a series. I've come to find out, or at least we've come to learn, that that's not this. There is another secret series yet to be announced.
Is it that Academy one?
No, that's already been announced.
Or is that Legacy one?
I don't know if it's Legacy or not. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up because there has been no formal talks as far as I know with Terry Metalis. The funky thing about this though, Nick, and I'm glad you kind of brought it up to a point though, is this tax incentive was for California. Academy's being shot in Canada. And this is for a series. That tax incentive was not for a movie. This is a movie with an $80 million budget.
Oh, wow.
So keep that in mind, kids. So that's not this other tax incentive. The tax incentive deal has to do with a completely separate series that we don't know what it is. Now we can speculate. Since it's happening in California, I believe Picard was mostly filmed in California, if I'm not mistaken. So that could be it's something related to that. Maybe there's a spinoff there. I don't know, but I'm so glad this gentleman joined us at the perfect time for this. Welcome, Mr. Burnett, to the program.
I've been going back and forth on Twitter for people to think I'm an awful person for making jokes about this.
Oh Lord. Well, I was just giving everybody the 411 on this because I actually scooped this before it came out. Because there's actually something else going on that I've been just kind of going through some of the revelations that were given to me by my source.
Well, can we just talk about like on the conclusion, like literally tomorrow, there is an IMAX event across 10 theaters in the United States where they're showing the end of Star Trek Picard. Season 3, episodes 9 and 10 are put together as a theatrical event. They had to make this announcement the day before the triumphant conclusion, just in case I mean, how disrespectful is that?
It's typical of former Kurtzman, though, Robert. That's
I know, but it's so here Picard cracks the top 10 streaming.
Yep.
And they before the show's over, they announce Starfleet Academy in this. So what, they can reestablish who's really in control or command. They couldn't wait.
That could be part of it. There's another thing, just as you were coming in here, I was talking about because what I have going on in the background now is I'm trying to figure out there's a secret series that we don't know what it is yet that got a tax incentive for California. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Picard shot in California?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing I'm also hearing is that season 3 of Picard caused CBS to take a bit of inventory on what's going on here. Here's the thing. We all know that Kurtzman has 2 years left regardless.
Didn't you hear? It's because of people like me that he got his contract renewed.
No. And I've been arguing that's not the case.
I know.
Because we know that even if he has been renewed to 2030, what that's his CBS contract. That's not his Star Trek contract.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing: is there's a bunch of this crap that Kurtzman's doing that's all going to be within his contracted time. So as far as him saving his own ass, he ain't done that yet, as far as I can tell. As far as Star Trek is concerned. Now, you probably may know more about this than I do, but as far as I know, from what everybody said, and I've been told from multiple sources, they have not talked to Terry yet, but they are very strongly considering going forward with something there because of the reaction they've gotten. And now I'm curious that if this tax incentive they got for this unnamed Paramount Plus series in California may have something to do with that, but that's very quick, and you would think that Terry would know what that's all about then. So I don't know. There's a lot going on behind the scenes here. I'm also being told that they're planning on new movies every 2 years, but Secret Hideout has control of these. JJ is out, is the other thing I'm being told. So that part has been taken care of. This is all under Kurtzman's purview now. So I don't know what else you've heard. If you can add to this, I mean, there's a few other things I want to check into before I get them out there.
I honestly don't know. While Terry and I have become friends, from a business perspective, if he had something going on, he'd have to keep it quiet. And,
right, he has an NDA, and he's still under contract with CBS, but not with Secret Hideout.
That's right. That's right. He has a deal with CBS through next October. So
yeah,
well, through this coming October. But yeah, I mean, anybody that works in the industry doesn't, if they have deals in place, they won't say anything. It's common practice not. But the tax incentive thing is interesting, because if you're trying to get a tax incentive, you have to report it. Like, you have to explain what it is. We just saw that Citadel, the second season of Citadel, Amazon Citadel, the Russo brothers produced show that they spent $300 million on for 6 episodes of a 40-minute an episode show. $300 million is the second most expensive TV series ever made. They got a season 2 tax incentive approved for $25 million, which is a huge tax incentive.
Well, there's one other
tax credit. So, yeah. but yeah, for Star Trek, I mean, I would, because the production company, the studio, from what I understand, you have to say what it is, because it's public knowledge, because it's taxpayer money.
Right now, it's under Untitled Project.
Does it say Untitled Star Trek Project?
No, it just says Untitled Paramount Plus Project. But I'm being told it's a Star Trek project.
That could be. I mean,
that's where I was thinking, with the connection with Picard in California, because as far as I know, that's the only show that's shot in California, mainly because that was Patrick Stewart's stipulation, if I remember right.
But I mean, the interesting thing is, one of the things that Star Trek had, especially during the Berman era, was all the Star Trek shows were shot in the Paramount lot. And because of that, they were able to amortize costs, and they were able to use, like I've often pointed out, that the warp intermix chamber on the Voyager was the same as on the Enterprise refit in Star Trek The Motion Picture. They were able to repurpose, and that was one of the things that gave it, obviously added a lot of production value to TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. Well, not so much Enterprise because it took place in the past, but they were able to reuse a lot of that stuff, repurpose it. So, and that's something too, that is the repurposing offset by the shows. But that's interesting. I didn't hear that, but there are a lot of Paramount Plus shows, but if it is a Star Trek show, that would be fascinating. I know that. Well, there was other shows that they wanted that were proposed to certain people, and I think the real thing is, like, at the end of the day, I just want great shows with great characters, great stories, and great characters. That's it. And I think that what there really needs to be is the one thing about Terry Matalas is he came in with a very strong vision. And he had a team of people that he'd worked with before on the 12 Monkeys series.
I love that show.
It's
sold me on giving Picard a try.
It's a fantastic show. And what was really interesting about that, from a writing perspective, if you look at that show, they knew things were going to happen in the 4th season that they set up in the 1st season.
And they
had to shoot things. I mean, that's the way to make great genre television, is if you really know what you're doing. And I think that what Terry, Picard season 3 might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I think what it did prove is that when you have a strong creative entity like Terry, who surrounds himself with strong creatives that trust him because they'd previously worked together, then you have what all TV shows should have, which is a great team of people that really know how to execute on a vision. And when you don't have that, and there's a lot of people now, I think from what I have understood, people in Hollywood, they used to know it was a finely honed machine that would make shows. Like, when you actually got onto set, the production methodology for making television and movies was something that was time honored and people have been doing it for a long time. Now, a lot of those people have moved on, and the people that are making these things don't know as much as previous years past. So there's a lot of money. Like when you read about what happened on a show like Citadel and how they had to reshoot so much of it. I mean, there's no excuse for budgets on TV shows to go up and be like $300 million. And there's a real schism between the people that really know how to make TV and the people that don't. And it's really problematic.
Right.
And when you work for a company like Amazon, you know, their primary business, both Amazon and Apple, when they're making programming, they're not interested. Their primary focus is they want people, Amazon wants people to sign up for Prime so they can buy all of Amazon's products. The shows that they're making and the movies that they're making are byproducts of that. It's not their primary business. It's just another thing that drives other people, the consumers, to go to Amazon. And the same is true of Apple. You know, while Apple has, I think, great taste for the most part, they're making very slick shows. They still want people to watch those shows on their computers, their phones, and things like that. So it's different than, say, Netflix, whose only business is making TV shows.
Right. Well, I'm curious what those other projects could be that were proposed, and I don't know if you can even really talk of them, but I do have an idea of what this could plausibly be, or some other things that have been brought up, at least according to my source. And the only reason I'm really kind of trusting some of the things this source has been telling me is the Section 31 thing came down like clockwork. They told me some other things about Yellowstone that also came down like clockwork yesterday.
Yeah.
Like,
well, Section 31's been in development for a very long time.
Yeah.
So
well, we know that. But like, and this goes along with things that I had heard, is that this was kind of one of those things that was languishing in the background until all of a sudden she won her Oscar. And then CBS is like, well, what's going on with that?
Yeah.
And then they worked out a deal with her to where she got executive producer role. And I was told that the budget on this is $80 million. And it's going to be a Paramount Plus movie from what I heard too.
Which,
so
by the way,
like
is exactly
thing, but yeah.
But even if it was theatrical, like I would hope that if they're going to make a Section 31 movie that's going to live on Paramount Plus, I hope an $80 million. Look, if they were to, $80 million is where Star Trek should live.
Yeah.
The problem with the JJ movies is making Star Trek movies for $200 million is ridiculous. Star Trek is a niche franchise. It's not Star Wars. If they could figure out a way to make viable theatrical features at 80 million, release them theatrically and have them make $300 to $400 million worldwide, that's a good business.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they put those movies on Paramount Plus.
That a business? Why is it they feel like everything needs to be $1 billion? Because there's nothing wrong with something having
that's something we can't make sense
and having
on.
A smaller number and be a success. I think that should be a number that most studios would be proud of, and to say, hey, look, we made something, people liked it, we got our money back, and we're getting residuals. That seems like a great thing. Why is it that everything needs to be $1 billion? Because not everything is made and designed to be $1 billion, you know, and that's fine. Not everything needs to be it.
Emma Watts said that exact thing, and then she's no longer working at Paramount, from what I know. But like, she was one of the first people to actually come out and say that in that group of people. She's like, yeah, these movies are not made to be, or they shouldn't be $1 billion movies. They were spending too much money and not making enough. It's a niche franchise. And that's why Kurtzman Trek never made any sense to me either, because, you know, from what we learned from your, you know, interview with Brian Fuller, Robert, is that the problem he was running into was budgetary issues. And then all of a sudden Kurtzman comes in after him and they give him this huge budget. Was that because he brought the Netflix money in, or did they already have the Netflix money? Because that doesn't make no sense.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that from what Brian Fuller told me,
I was watching that day.
Les Moonves said something to the extent of why a Star Trek show has huge upfront costs, because you have to build sets, you have to make costumes, you can't buy stuff off the rack.
Well, that's what you were talking about amortizing earlier.
Yeah, and what you do is you amortize. So the upfront costs you amortize. That means that you have a certain budget for sets and costumes for each show. And so amortizing means you put it out over, say, the 10 episodes or 14 episodes or 15 episodes. Right. So you break it up to break. So even though you're spending all that money up front, at the end of the episodes, it should all come out. It should all seem pretty manageable. But a lot of people just didn't understand that, you know, and Brian Fuller, they were trying to make really nice, big, beautiful sets that would endure, that are going to last for 5 years. And so that wasn't really understood. And it's frustrating because it's not like Star Trek isn't 57 years old. If there's one TV show in America that should be the best produced television show of all time, it should be Star Trek, because of how much Star Trek has been produced. And, you know, everyone comes in, the fact that what Terry Matalas did with Picard season 3 was he made it a bottle series. Most of this show is going to be set on, and when they had different sets, what they did was they repurposed their sets. Like Vadic's ship was the La Serena. You know, the Vatic ship was the La Serena set's 2 stories. They went underneath and made that her bridge. So, and that's great television producing, and that's what classic Star Trek used to do. You know, they would just repurpose rooms over and over again. Same with Next Generation. And so when you're telling those stories, you know, you make it a bottle show is a show that's only shot on standing sets. So you don't go somewhere else. You don't go on location. You don't have to go. And a great example of that is the episode The Doomsday Machine, where the Enterprise finds the wrecked starship Constellation that's also a Constitution class ship. You can just shoot, you take the Enterprise sets and put some debris in the corridors, have stuff falling down from the ceiling, and suddenly you're on another Constitution class ship. So suddenly, as far as the story is concerned, there's 2 starships now. And for the story, it seems epic. But in terms of production, you're on the same sets. And so that keeps costs way down.
And Star Trek was like one of the kings of this, even to the point of where in the films and such, they would use the same special effects over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
It almost kind of reminded me of how like Charlie Band would do shit over at Full Moon sometimes with some of that stuff. But
or Roger Corman would use the special effects in Battle Beyond the Stars in different movies, like Space Raiders. It's like, wait a minute, that's Shad's ship from Battle Beyond the Stars. No.
It's why I love like even the Generation movies really got a lot of usage out of the Star Trek reusage of the
they even reused the exploding bird of prey from Star Trek 6.
It's like they even have it. I was just gonna say
the Lursen Betor's ship exploded. It's the same effect shot.
Exactly. But yeah, no, well, it'll be interesting to see what comes of this, because the other series that I've been hearing about now has got some talks to it, and I'm glad you're able to make it today, because I guess I'm hearing that they're not totally counting out Khan as being a possible series still. They're still going forward, I guess, with the audio play. But I mean, I have some history with this, so I was
I mean,
your take on this. So,
so for those of you who don't know, Nicholas Meyer wrote back in 2017. He wrote a 3-episode event series called SETI Alpha 5, and it deals with the history of Khan being the end of Space Seed and then being marooned on SETI Alpha 5 and what happened during that stay. And it's funny because that story has been covered in various iterations through comic books and through Star Trek novels, but it's never been done on film. So Nicholas Meyer wrote this. He was going to direct it. And I thought the 3 scripts were great. It's a really great story. Something really big happens that is right in front of you. If you watch Star Trek 2, there's something that happens, you go, oh, but the way it's portrayed in the 3 scripts, it never occurred to me. And when it happens, I'm like, of course. And it's so well done. And, you know, Khan is supposed to be an East Indian, a Sikh warrior. And they could hire they actually have an opportunity to recast Khan and actually cast an East Indian actor, some famous Bollywood star, to play Khan, you know, and do it for real, do it for how, because, you know, Ricardo Montalban was Mexican. He wasn't an Indian Sikh warrior as he was supposed to be in Space Seed. So it'd be a great opportunity, you know, that you talk about diversity or inclusion. You could hire some awesome Indian actors, some great Bollywood actors, somebody maybe even from RRR or something, and give him a great role as Khan. Find somebody really, really charismatic to play that character. It'd be great. I wish they would. I mean, I have all 3 of those scripts right on my computer right now.
I'm being told that's a possibility that's on the board, evidently.
Well, they should, because, you know, first of all, it's not expensive, because you can shoot it in New Mexico if you wanted to, and it could be done pretty easily. and it doesn't require a lot. You don't have to build starship sets or anything like that. And there is an opportunity for William Shatner to come back. At least you would hear his voice. They could deep fake Kirk, and Shatner could come back and do the voice in the beginning if they went with the current iterations of the scripts.
Right. Well, maybe it'll all depend on how popular the audio play is. I don't know. I just know
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
one
I
of the
would
things
just
that
go
was
ahead and
thrown in
I
there,
would just go
so
ahead and shoot those scripts. Those scripts are ready to go.
maybe they'll change their mind at the last minute. I can't imagine this California credit is for that though. I don't know what this series could be. I have not been given any idea of what it could possibly be.
Yeah, I don't know. That's really
So,
interesting.
yeah, but I know it's got a budget of $62 million, and they're getting, I think, a $14 million tax credit from California for shooting it in California, whatever it is.
Wow.
And it's a series. It's not the movie, so that's not the Section 31 movie, because that's an $80 million budget, and I think they're shooting that in Canada as well, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm not sure.
I will happily take Starship Titan with Captain Shaw at this point.
Well,
all I can tell you is stay tuned. And remember, Star Trek Picard, the 10th episode has a mid-credit sequence. Don't forget to watch that.
I got to get caught up. I've been kind of on this like pouty kick because, Terry just kind of shut me off. So I was like, whatever. But it is what it is. I'm kind of used to that. But anyway, I'm glad you were here to get your take on some of this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. But I know you've had a lot of fun with Star Trek, and no, I don't think that you're part of the reasons Kurtzman's getting any renewal.
Yeah,
I don't
all
think
this stuff was in pride. That's not how
Picard
stuff
has
works.
anything to do with that. Yeah, if it happens, it has more to do with just like I've said to people before. I don't think they realize how much Kurtzman does with CBS and his big deal there, and CBS, I believe, even has a stake in his secret hideout company anyway.
Yeah.
So, and from what I've seen of a lot of this stuff, it almost feels like for the longest time, Kurtzman's been basically doing them a favor, and it wasn't until Clarice and The Man Who Fell to Earth have kind of fallen apart that he's kind of been more, on shakier ground, it seems like. But I don't know what you've heard otherwise, but not obviously from Terry, but I mean from anybody else involved. But
yeah, I mean it's I don't actually know a lot about it, so it's a weird situation.
All right, well, let's grab some super chats here. We've got Casperius who says, after those jokes, here's some demonetized funds. Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna need it. We had some pretty off-color dark jokes earlier come through the super chats. SXHBK has been a member for 5 months. It says, R&B, did you ever ask Shatner how he felt about being killed off in Generations twice in the same movie? I know he wrote the Kirk Returns books after. I have those audio books, I believe. The ones with...
yeah, I mean, yeah. I think in a way, he sort of regretted it. He regretted... he didn't really have a choice, though. They asked him to come back, and it wasn't like Harrison Ford, who always wanted to kill Han Solo. So
I think his inspiration probably came more to do with, I think he saw the reverence that Spock had after he died. So I think maybe he was thinking along those lines, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, but I don't think he ever appreciated the way he died. So, unfortunately.
Although of the new 4Ks, that is the best looking one of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautifully shot movie.
Yeah. Well, it has the most practical effects in it too.
Yeah.
Mecha J says, have you ever seen anyone fail upward as many times as Alex Kurtzman? No, but you want to know why that is because he's a yes man. And he does what the studio and the stars that he's working with and whatever else do. He does what they want. So then the real ultimate faults don't always fall on him, right? Tom Cruise can be blamed for The Mummy. Patrick Stewart
absolutely.
can be blamed for the first 2 seasons of Picard. He kind of came into whatever Brian Fuller had first established with Star Trek. And at the time, politically, the way things were, I think all those things sullied the water there, on top of them wanting something that wasn't too Star Trek-y, right? Like they were in this period of being so anti whatever Star Trek was. Like it feels like maybe they'll learn from the lessons of Picard season 3, but I doubt it. What would you think, Robert?
Well, I mean, Alex Kurtzman has said, we've talked about this many times, but how they see Star Trek as a messaging platform. And I think like everything else, Star Trek was always a show that gave you things to think about. It never told you what you should think. And so much of our entertainment today is, I understand the impulse of people wanting to do right by other people, but it's not really for our entertainment. I think a great story offers a lot of different points of view that you should take into consideration as somebody who's reading a story or watching a story or listening to a story. But a great story doesn't tell you what you should think. A great story offers you things to ponder, to think about. And I think a lot of the messaging in Star Trek, there is unfortunately, there is a very, I would say, call it a small-minded, rigid thing. People think that are not, I mean, the people that are making Star Trek now, they're not particular experts. They haven't seen a lot of the Star Trek shows. There is a pop culture, sort of an acquired knowledge that Star Trek was this very progressive show. Oh, it was. But what Star Trek did was it presented things matter-of-factly. Sometimes when it did things overtly, like when you have aliens from Charon that are black on one side of their face and white on the other. Somebody is black on one side on the left side of their face, someone's white on the right side of their face, and the other person is black on the right side of their face and white on the left side of their face. They both hate each other because they look different. And of course, our crew and we, the audience, are like, what difference does it make? And it's obviously it's hitting home the idea of how absurd racism could be. That was not Star Trek at its best. Star Trek at its best was at the time from 66 to 69 when it was on, it would cast black actors in major roles. And they never said anything about the characters being black. No one ever brought it up. There was an episode in the third season of Star Trek where Abraham Lincoln, or a vision of Abraham Lincoln, shows up, and they actually address Abraham Lincoln says something to Uhura that might have been considered offensive. And Uhura just says, in the 23rd century, we've learned not to fear words. And, that's about as overt as it would get. And their messaging was matter of fact, just like in Deep Space Nine. They cast Avery Brooks as a black, first of all, commander, then later captain of Deep Space Nine, who has a great relationship with he's a single widowed father. No one ever made any mention that he was black until later on in the series. They did an episode called why am I drawing a blank on the name of this episode? Not What You Leave Behind, but I forget the name. I wouldn't draw a blank like this, but
that's not my jam.
But basically he has a vision that he's a science fiction writer in the 50s, and they overtly address racism. But Deep Space Nine didn't really do that. Star Trek was always allegorical, and rather than hit you over the head with its messaging, it would provide an allegorical situation and let the audience decide. And so,
and a great example of that is the ending of Space Seed, leading into the whole conversation we had before, where it's like, it'd be interesting to come back and see what grows from the seed that we planted here today. However,
which is a great, that's a great. It's fantastic. That's
and that's really
the episode's called Far Beyond the Stars. That's the name of the episode, and it's one of the great episodes. It's one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine. It's kind of an off-brand episode, but really, really good. And nowadays, everyone's so worried about being a performative activist that I think that people think, well, Star Trek is a show that was only about activism, and it's like, no, Star Trek was a show that was a science fiction action adventure that relied on allegory, and it still provided a great sci-fi action adventure. But if you were looking for things, you could see them and find them, but it wouldn't tell you what you should think. It would just offer things to think about. And that's the difference. Nowadays, all this, I mean, I get raked over. I was getting raked over the coals while I was eating lunch before I came here. And I was being called a bigot because I made a joke about that Starfleet Academy was going to be delayed because they had to add more critical alien theory in it.
Well, you're probably
and
not.
I said,
alien theory.
critical alien theory and limitless gender studies, and I wasn't. The funny thing was I was just kind of joking about academia, about college in general,
Yeah,
and
but
people
God
took
forbid.
it. Yeah, people like, you can't make fun of critical race theory, and I'm like, sure you can. Why can't you? And then people are like, you're just a hateful bigot. And I'm like, am I? Am I a bigot? And what's interesting is all of these people come at you, and they're the ones that are full of this hateful rhetoric.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
I'm just like, hey man, I'm just making a joke, and
Yeah.
I'm making a joke because it's funny. I mean, what can I
It's
say?
It's them coming around screaming bigot and fascist while they're acting like a bigot and a fascist.
And they're all a bunch of jackbooted thugs. Anyone that's going around and saying that they know best, that no, you need to be this way.
Yeah.
Those are the dangerous people. Those are the people that think that they're doing the right thing.
Yep.
Those are the people.
Ironically, that's the crowd a lot of the Kurtzmans of the world want to appeal to, though.
Yep, that's
is
exactly
these people
right.
who want to talk about the acceptance and tolerance, but really, when you think about it, they just want people to look different, but to think the same way. You can't really have diversity when everyone thinks the same way. It's just different shades of the same ideology, ultimately.
Yep, absolutely. And they're the first people that'll burn you at the stake.
Yep.
They're the people. They're the people that would tell on where Anne Frank is.
Right.
Yeah.
Anne Frank's in that
yeah.
house over there. They're the first people, and you see it. And they hide
that's what
under
Gina
the guise
Carano
of,
was trying to say, right?
well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't elegant, but did you see what happened to Carl Weathers when he wished her a happy birthday on Twitter?
Yeah, he did this. I think he did the same thing last year and got burned.
It's just like, okay. If you wish somebody a happy birthday, that's all you're doing. You're wishing them a happy birthday.
Well, these people just need to get over it.
Well,
it's like he won already. She's gone. All right, let it go. For fuck's sake.
They needed to stop being catered to, because here's the thing:
that
they
more
kept
so,
getting
but-
all the way when it was that whole give an inch, take a mile thing, and they kept asking for more. And now they're saying, "Hey, look, we've got what we want. We can ask for more." Someone needs to just put a stop sign and say, "Okay, that's it. That's enough now. We have constantly given to your ways over and over and over again," because you can never 100% appease this type of crowd, because the more you try to appeal to them, they'll hold you to a higher standard, to a point where it becomes impossible to reach that center. And before you know it, they're going to have to wind up eating each other, because what happens when everything is super, I guess, perfect? Well, then you got to fuck something up in order to make their cause just again, because without their cause, a lot of them don't even know who they are without this cause, because they've made this stuff an extension of their personality.
Well, you're spot on there. The purpose is the key. People are looking for some way to feel as though their lives have meaning, and I have no issue with that. We all want to have a purpose that we impact the world. I think at least a lot of us do.
100%.
And if you haven't found it yet, it can be really easy to just slip into that Twitterverse and start feeling like you're making an impact from a social commentary perspective.
That's exactly right. 100%. I totally agree with you. By the way, Kazoo Chicken says the con story has been told, not the story Nicholas Meyer's telling. It's kind of like Pitcairn Island, the story that takes place after Mutiny on the Bounty. What happens to Khan's genetic Superman when they're marooned on a planet, and they literally, like they say at the end, what happens when those people, superior ability breeds superior ambition? What happens when they literally get the opportunity to make a world, to create their own society? And it's really interesting. And it's a totally different story. And it's a story we haven't seen before, at least in Star Trek. And it really works because Nicholas Meyer is a classical storyteller. And he draws upon a lot of classical story tropes. And it really was a cool story. And it has a big twist in it that I wasn't expecting. That when and you're like, of course that's true. And I thought that was great. Well,
hopefully they decide to put it in front of the camera instead of just doing a radio play. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Jack White says he sent me an email with links to some interesting articles to cover tonight. Yeah, there was quite a few in there, buddy. We don't have time to go through all of them, but I will bring this one up right now. Because James Gunn has announced that pre-production has begun on Superman Legacy. He shared a tweet online, said he's done writing it. So yeah, that's happening. It will start shooting early next year, I guess, is the plan. So who's excited for James Gunn's Superman Legacy? I'm interested anyway.
I'm gonna wait and see what are the announcements to come. I want to look and feel like Superman. I'm still of the mind that, and Rob, I'm gonna take one of your quotes because I do watch Robservations. I want Superman to be your mom's apple pie. I want that on the big screen, and I feel like if anything, we need that now on the big screen now more than ever, because the way I see Superman is something we should aspire to be. Superman should not aspire to be like us. And I feel like we need that now more than ever. And you can have an Americana heroism filled movie. I mean, obviously we can point at Top Gun Maverick because that's an easy reference, but I truly believe if we get the right actor, the right people to give us a full-on Superman movie that is shamelessly Superman, not trying to be Batman with superpowers, I believe this could be a $1 billion hit, even with the wrecked economy. I'm not one of those people who thinks, oh, it's a bad economy, this can't happen. I mean, a lot of people forget that the first Avatar, regardless of how people feel about it, that made over $2 billion in a bad economy because people liked it, or at least I thought they liked it. So yeah, I truly believe a Superman movie, bad economy or not, has what it takes to go all the way. You got a recognizable character, obviously recognizable director. Just give the story and make it good timing, which I think it is, July 2025 in the summer. Just give us something people to be excited about rather than divide us and antagonize us. Give us something to look forward to, make us hopeful. I feel like Superman's the perfect thing to make us hopeful for if they give it to us that way.
Yeah. I hope it's good. I think James Gunn will come up with something great. I really do.
I hope so. CC?
We're certainly at a point in time where a hopeful, positive story sells. Even a simple one. I mean, you look at Super Mario Brothers movie. It's not a tragedy. You're not going to go in there and be depressed coming out of it. I really think people just want a positive, uplifting feel right now. And Superman is exactly that, as long as they're true to the character.
Yeah.
Indeed.
In fact, Star Trek should be that.
I mean, Star Trek should be the Tiffany standard of science fiction on television. But you need people that understand science fiction as a genre.
Well, then you need to have actual science fiction writers, because it's safe to say that a lot of writers nowadays, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, yada, yada, they're not getting action, sci-fi, comic writers. They're getting people who, well, they don't understand these type of genres. They're just there because they're cheap to hire. They're not going to push back. And they also don't have the love for the property, which, because nowadays they call that a shameful thing to be a fan of any of these things.
Right. Anything to say to this, Snowdub?
Well, I've always admitted that I'm more of a Marvel fan, but I'm an old enough puppet where I grew up with the original Superman movies. There's a lot of nostalgia there with Christopher Reeve, and the first couple movies were fantastic, especially for that time. And I'd really like to feel that nostalgia again. I really don't think we've had a good nostalgia Superman in quite a while. People would argue maybe Man of Steel, but I just don't think it hit all the right buttons like the original movies did with Christopher Reeve. Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Superman Returns to a point. I mean, there was aspects of it that were problematic, but I feel like if they were allowed to continue on with that concept, we might have gotten a hell of a sequel out of it, and things would have been different. But I think James Gunn hopefully can balance everything well, and I know he's not going to be able to. I know he knows he's not going to be able to make everybody happy. But if he
Right.
can make basically most general audiences happy and the hardcore Superman fans happy, I think we're good to go. And a lot of the stuff he's been posting, again, I'm not going to say that, this is going to be amazing, but I do feel a little bit more confident seeing, all the Donner stuff that he's posting, the Alex Ross stuff that he's posting, some of the other stuff. I mean, not every one of these announcements going forward am I excited for, especially like the Batman project, which the Russos are rumored to be circling around. Like, I'm not too keen on that idea and some of the other stuff that we got announced so far, but this is the one that's going to make or break it, I think, for us out the gate. Because if he screws this pooch, then I don't know how much confidence we're going to have going forward with this.
By the way, that the show you were talking about, the Paramount Plus show that got the tax
Yeah.
credit, could it be
Yes.
Galaxy Quest?
Maybe.
Because that's
Would
Paramount
they shoot
Plus.
that in California?
Probably.
It may be, but I was told it was a Star Trek related show, although that could make sense.
I mean,
Galaxy
Yeah.
Quest is kind of Star Trek.
kind
Yeah,
of
it is
Star
Star
Trek
Trek.
related.
because that was
Could
just
very
announced,
well be.
and that was announced today.
It
So
was,
it would
yes.
make sense to me that it was Galaxy Quest.
The only thing about that is I would think if that was the case, we might know more about it because they were very hush-hush on what it was all about, because we don't even know if it's going to be a returning cast or reboot or what it is. Because for years they were trying to get a sequel off the ground, and then they were thinking, well, maybe the sequel will be a series, because even Tim Allen said something, what was it, like 3 years ago or so about it? Like he was on board, but he was just waiting for the go-ahead or whatever they were saying. And the way that the article I read earlier sounds like that version had fallen apart too. Like this sounds like it's a whole new iteration, because there's only like one person involved that has anything to do with the previous Galaxy Quest. I forget the name of the individual's Mark something, I believe, but I don't know. You could be right. Could very well be right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, could be.
Because they do kind of consider that under the same,
Yeah,
because they did adopt it. Well, maybe you're right. We'll see if you're right on that. That'd be a good call if that's the case.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was just thinking because that was
Well, it
announced
was before
before.
the announcement, so you're right. So it may not have been named yet publicly, so that's why. But we'll have to see how that pans out and what my sources say on that as we go forward, I guess. But other than that, let's see what we got here. We have Lost for Words, who's been a member for 14 months. Thank you so much. Troy Neenan says, TV is dead. Your childhood is corrupted. I don't know about that. Look to other indie creators. YouTube is full of people with no money doing better stuff than Star Trek. Well, that I can get behind. But my childhood is fine. It's where it is. Ain't nobody going to mess with that. As far as TV being dead, yes and no. There's a lot of good stuff out there. We got new Beavis and Butthead in 2 days.
I think there's a lot of good stuff on
Yeah.
TV, though. I mean, there's
Thank
a lot
you.
of great streaming shows.
Yeah, Paramount Plus alone has a few great shows. The Offer, the Yellowstone.
I've really been enjoying Rabbit Hole. If
I haven't
nothing
heard of
else,
that one.
then it's the new Kiefer Sutherland series with Charles Dance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
And I
Yeah.
really like The Night Agent that was on Netflix. Kind of these mid-level spy shows that are well done. I think that there's a lot of really great streaming. I love The Offer. You have the show about the making
Yeah,
of
I just mentioned that.
Godfather.
That's been one of my favorite shows. Well, I mean, it's a mini series, but it was a fucking amazing
Yeah.
show.
It was
I
great.
want
and it had-
spin-off of that. Now
I want the Bob Evans show when Matthew Good just plays
Yes.
Bob Evans and you do his whole Paramount career.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. They
mean,
kind of set it up to where you could spin off Chinatown, Godfather 2,
Yeah.
The Longest Yard.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, Apocalypse Now, because you have the actor for Brando already. I
Yep.
would love to see a show similar to that in the vein, going over like Star Wars and Jaws, for instance. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh God, I would love to see a whole like slew of those, and like you said, have the same actors throughout to kind of make the connection. It'd be great. Bob Evans specifically, yeah, because I can't believe that's Ozymandias playing Bob, like, and he's spot on. Like anybody who knows, I've ever seen anything with Bob Evans, he became Bob Evans in that show.
Oh,
I'd love to see more
just
Friday Night
incredible.
Lights, honestly.
I love one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah.
Friday Night Lights.
I'm glad
Friday
you say
Night
that.
Lights. Friday Night Lights is the Star Trek of East Texas football series.
And it's very easy to make more of it. You get especially you get those 2 core cast members back, a whole new
Yeah, you get Connie
team.
Britton and
Oh, yeah.
you know, but that show, like The West Wing too. The West Wing was kind of Star Trek in the White House, and
I
with
can
that,
see what you're saying there. Yeah.
yeah, so good stuff.
Yeah. Well, but no, like I'm not gonna cut down on any indie stuff though. Of course, check out indie stuff anytime you get the chance. Jack White has some book recommendations for us. Says intellectuals in society and the visions of anointed. They will help explain one of the factors when it comes to woke and academia. Well, I'll have to look into that. Thank you so much, Jack White. And with that, I think we're wrapped up on the super chats. Was there any topics of interest you guys wanted to bring up real quick before we do wrap this up? Because I know we've got Toxic Tuesday coming up here in how long, Nick?
Less than 45 minutes.
Less than 45 minutes. We're going to be talking about Reservoir Dogs, one of my favorite films. Well, my favorite director of all time, Quentin Tarantino. Easy. But yeah, I love this movie, so I can't wait to talk to you.
I got a quick topic, if you don't mind, Tom. I'm curious to get your thoughts because we haven't really had a chance to talk about it. But what did you feel about this new Evil Dead trailer? Are you wanting to see it? What do you think?
You know, it's funny. We have somebody here who's worked in that franchise.
Yes,
really?
I worked on Army of Darkness.
Yes,
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies.
I have a screen credit
It
in that
is.
movie.
You got to be in the presence of the Chin?
Oh yeah, I as a matter of fact, so I worked for a company called Altarian Studios, and Tony Gardner is a makeup effects guy, and we did all of the Deadite stuff. So it was split between Altarian and KMB. So we did all of the Evil Ash stuff, and then all the Deadite stuff, and my job. So that summer that Evil Dead it was called Medieval Dead when it was being made. When we were doing it, I was working on the Sleepwalkers movie that Mick Garris was directing, the Swamp Thing TV show, and Army of Darkness. So what I would have to do is our shop that was in Monrovia, we were building all kinds of things, facial appliances. We had full-on skeleton warriors that needed to be puppeteered, and Bruce Campbell stuff for latex appliances for his face.
Let's get the hell out of here.
And yeah, and I had to I would have to take that stuff to set every day. So the places that I would go the most, there were 2 places I went the most, was either up to Acton, which is off the 14 freeway here in Los Angeles, where the castle set was built. This huge castle set. It was awesome. Or I had to go into Hollywood to the Introvision stages. And Introvision was an in-camera effects process that they used. The first time they used it was in a movie called Outland from 1981. Sean Connery was in. So it was one of those 2 places, and it was amazing. So I was on set like every day, all summer long, and it was incredible, watching all that stuff. The funny thing about it was the first time I had met Sam Raimi was when I worked on the Warner Brothers lot in 89 and 90, and he was scoring. Altarian also did all the effects for Darkman for him, and he was scoring Darkman with Danny Elfman. And I had met him I was introduced to him by an executive, and he was actually literally getting an ice cream cone, and I was right behind him. I was behind him, and he took me into the scoring stage to watch Danny Elfman score some of Darkman. And then I brought my Japanese Laserdisc of the first Evil Dead, and he signed it Beast Witches, Sam Raimi, which I still have.
So
yeah,
cool.
it was so much fun working. That movie was crazy. And then of course, they had a hard time with the ending. They shot the other ending and the S-Mart ending. And
which one did Raimi prefer?
I think he liked the original. When Ash wakes up in the post-apocalyptic future,
takes one too many drops.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, they kind of did it again in the end of the series. Ash versus Evil Dead. They kind of went back to that. Yeah,
I think Evil Dead Rise it looks great to me.
It looks fun, but it doesn't look fun so much. That's what I was just gonna say. It looks like it's missing the fun element, but otherwise it has some Evil Dead stuff in it. But I'm kind of leery, because that's what. Like just talking about the first 3 films specifically is like that was one thing that, and the series too, definitely got the tone right. I have never seen the remake, although I've heard good things about it, but I've heard that's more intense. And see, that's what this feels more like to me, is the remake from what I'm seeing from the trailers. I
Yeah.
hope it's good, but I
You
gotta check out
actually,
the remake too yet.
You
So.
actually nailed it, Tom. The remake they made a few years back was a lot more intense, a lot more graphic, a lot more gruesome. Um, when we watched Evil Dead, we got the campy horror.
Right.
The so much blood that it's ridiculous type of thing, and that's what we love about it. So it's really hard for me to be in without the chin. We've become so um, attached to the Bruce Campbell character and the Ash character. It's
Well,
kind of
he keeps
synchronized
us
with Evil
safe,
Dead.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean,
I don't
he's our
know.
safety net. So like that's the other thing I have an issue with too. Yeah.
And he's literally in the Book of the Dead. I mean, he's put down as the chosen one. They show images of him with a chainsaw hand and the ancient past. So they're gonna have to figure out a way to connect that. Now, granted, from what I hear, Bruce Campbell is producing it, and he did have some say with this, and there will be some tips of the hat to the old franchise. So it is part of the lore, from what I gather.
Yeah, I heard that like there's some characters in the movie that are like related to characters from the original film. So I have probably more interest in this than I did the remake at the time because I heard that, but not so much in the trailer itself is selling me yet. So I don't know if I'm going to go see it in theaters, but I'll definitely check it out. Go ahead, CC. I'm sorry.
No, I'm partial to practical effects in general, but especially with this series, if they're going to employ creative use of practical effects, then I'm interested. If they're going to start going special effects with it and computer generated,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah, I gotta
Nick,
agree with
anything
that.
to say on it?
I got
So-
nothing.
Okay.
I think it's going to be good though. I mean,
I hope so.
that was another thing like it was going to go direct to streaming.
Yes.
And based
Yeah.
on test audiences reactions, they decided to take it theatrical. And I'm hoping that, if
Yeah.
it's as good as people say it is, that it could do quite well, which I mean, I'd love to see Ash come back. Put him
Yeah, me
back in the
too.
theater,
Do you think that Bruce would actually do it though after everything?
I absolutely think he would.
Money talks, baby.
I say
Yeah,
even though he
yeah.
says he won't, but like,
Hail
yeah.
to the king. Come on.
He has said before he wasn't going to do it again, but like, yeah. So
I think
Troy-
he would.
Troy
I mean,
Pacelli-
look at all these. You need to make the Top Gun Maverick of the Evil Dead franchise.
right. Well, and I don't think they got a fair shake with Ash versus Evil Dead really either.
No, they need to come back to a post-apocalyptic Earth where the Evil Dead have conquered the planet, and Ash needs to come back to the Ayatollah of rock and roll, come to the wasteland, and take back the Earth from the Evil Dead. Something epic, something gigantic. Make it huge.
Exactly. Troy Pacelli sends in $5 and says, "Writer's strike. Why do we have to go through this every time there's a change of medium? Syndication, home video, cable, now streaming." Well, you just answered your own
Yeah.
question.
Because every time there's new media, the writers get screwed.
Yeah,
even further.
If there's anybody because that's the thing, isn't a writer technically considered above the line, but they're actually paid like somebody who's below the line?
Yeah, and the way writers get paid has been significantly altered in the last 25 years.
They're
It used
screwed
to
the
be,
most.
if you were a TV writer, remember, TV shows used to have like 26 episodes, like Star Trek always had 26 episodes a season. And you work on that and you get residuals. You knew that those shows were going to play over and over and over. And nowadays, the writers, I mean, it's like a buyout. And what they want is, like, if you have a streaming show, before the model was a show would generate revenue based on commercials. And if it was a successful show, it would be aired 2 or 3 times a year. The commercials and the ad revenue would pay for the show. Well, nowadays you have streaming, and the potential exists when you look at how many people like watch a Stranger Things. They're getting way more views than they've ever received, and yet writers get no residuals. Basically, what they're asking for is, okay, if 100 million people watch my show that I've written, I deserve to get money for that. But the problem is nowadays it's a buyout because these streaming services are not getting revenue based on a single show. Like, you used to be able to look at a show and be like, okay, so an episode of Friends, we generate however many millions of dollars in revenue. And after everybody's paid out, there's profit left. There's profit sharing to give people residuals.
Right.
Nowadays, there isn't that. Once a show is made and it goes up on streaming, there's no additional revenue stream. So you might have all these people watching it. It becomes a big hit for a streaming service, but that isn't translated down to the writers. And I would say the problematic thing is that as much as I believe the writers should get paid more, with streaming, you never know. A streaming show can exist on a platform forever, but it gets its major viewership in the first couple weeks. And then it's essentially a dead brand. So it's a pretty nuanced conversation, but I do think that what they're going to have to do is realize it's a buyout and just pay people way more up front and treat the writers. They're doing all kinds of things, like having these mini writers' rooms where they're not paying people. They're like, yeah, we want you guys to write like 4 scripts. We don't know if we're going to make the show, but we want you to write 4 scripts, but they're not paying you your regular guild rates that you would normally get paid to write an episode of television. So they're doing a lot more spec work and not paying the writers to do it. It's not cool. So
yeah, and I wish Script was here, but to cover this a little bit more. But no, and I agree with you 100%. Like, that's the thing, is you have problem is that these guys are not being paid. They're being screwed over the most. And I think they're not going to really see their just dues until all the streaming services kick over to the ad streaming, which is kind of getting there. Like, almost every one of them now has introduced an ad tier. And what those ad tiers are going to eventually do is replace the cable and network model, is what Script and I know others have said before, because that then gives you the incentive, right? Because then we're right back where television was before. And that is, if you have a hit show, you get more revenue from the sponsors. Hence, you can pay the people a little bit more, and so on down the line. And again, it's more of an incentive to make a decent show and to get good writers and so on and so forth. And I think that's the wave of the future, but we have a little ways to get there yet. Like, the streaming services have to adapt to that yet. And people have to get used to watching either commercials during streaming or paying a little bit more for not watching commercials, basically.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Indeed. And we got a couple more here, and then we're going to wrap this up, I think. Kazoo wants to know, has anybody seen Renfield? Is it any good? I have. Has anybody else seen it here on the panel?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping you would. I bet you'd love it, Robert. I enjoyed it.
Not yet. Tomorrow.
I loved it. Had a great time. It played loving homage to the Universal Dracula. Nicolas Cage is hilarious and scary at the same time. They don't nerf Dracula at all. He's a true villain. Nicholas Hoult as Renfield is a gem. I didn't even mind Aquafina all that much. Ben Schwartz is one of the villains, is hilarious. He's great in it. Great cast, 90 minutes in and out. Lots of gore. If you love shit like Evil Dead, like Army of Darkness and stuff like that, or Deadpool, stuff like that, you'll definitely like this movie.
Are there any previous nods to his other vampire movies, like subtle references? Because obviously this is not Nick Cage's first vampire movie.
Not that I caught in the first viewing, but you know, I wasn't really looking for that. Like, he totally convinced me that he's basically like because the world is aware of Dracula, right? Like, it's not like Dracula doesn't exist in this world already, but it's clearly the fictional version of Dracula that everybody knows. So basically, the way they set it up is like the Bela Lugosi Dracula that we saw in the movies was like the movie version of Dracula. These are the real guys. And so he is basically playing that version of Dracula, but it's like more real and scary in a way. Kind of like a New Nightmare, where Freddy played a bit different, or like Robert Englund played a bit scarier version of Freddy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that in a way. But Nicolas Cage is also chewing the scenery in this thing. Like, you can tell he's loving every minute of it, and he just relishes it, and it's great. One of his best performances in a long time.
Good. I'm looking forward to watching it. I think Film Threat review summed up. Nicolas Cage is a genre. I thought that title was perfect. He practically is.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Kind of, but this is like the least Nicolas Cage performance in a while, but yet it isn't.
Oh,
I know that's weird to say that.
I always feel like you're lying.
I know it's weird because he's still Nicolas Cage. Don't get me wrong, but he is so into this character, right? Like he is Dracula. Like, like he's wearing it. Like it's just, he became it. And some of the makeup effects and stuff they got on him are great. And all the moments he has, like that's one of the complaints I'm hearing from most people who have seen it, is there's not enough Nicolas Cage. And I can't argue with that, but I also am like, you look, it's 90 minutes and it doesn't need to be any longer than it is. Right? Like it is great just as it is. So I'm sick of these 2.5, 3 hour movies.
Hey man, I gotta jump and take this call.
No problem. We're gonna be wrapping up anyway. So thank you, Robert, for hopping in here. I appreciate it, brother, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
All right, man. I'll see you
Take
later.
care.
All right,
Later.
bye-bye. Hold
we
on.
got Parrot Head who sent us a sticker here. Thank you so very much. I'll take you out here. Don't worry, Robert. There you go. Okay, so while he's figuring it out, we have Parrot Head who sent in, let me see here, what was it? I know they were help me out in the mod squad here. It is a unicorn. Thank you so much for that. And Jack White asked, did you guys see the news about Netflix live action One Piece series? Apparently they did a test screening of it and it was a giant dumpster fire. I did hear something to that effect, but I don't know if that's going to affect whether or not it's going to be going forward or not. I didn't hear that part. I don't know if anybody has anything to say about One Piece or not.
I don't know, but I see what you did there, Parrot Head. No horses. No. Bad Parrot Head.
All I know is I feel bad for that fan base.
I've seen some of the anime, and given Netflix's track record, if this is going to be a dumpster fire, I mean, no surprises.
Yeah.
I like the show, though.
Well, we'll have to see. I haven't heard for sure, but I don't really keep up with this, so I can't tell you on that. If somebody knows better in the chat, let me know. But yeah, with that, I think we're going to wrap things up. We got Toxic Tuesday in a half hour, right?
Yes, sir. I actually got to get on getting ready for it myself. So yes, half hour, folks. Toxic Tuesday, Reservoir Dogs. We got the whole gang for this one tonight, which is going to be phenomenal. So please come check out Toxic Tuesday in less than a half hour. It's going to be a blast. I am hugely, hugely, hugely excited for this movie. Not just because of talk about it, but I'm curious of what I'll learn from Tom about it, because it's like I've known about this movie for some long, but I'll bet you Tom's gonna pull like 80, 100 more things that I don't know about. So this is gonna be fun as a listener and a viewer. I get the best of both worlds of this. So chat, please hang out with us. Tom, as always, thank you for having me, and good to hang out with all of you on Midnight's Edge, CC Karaoke. Jolly, nice to see you as well. And yeah, I will see hopefully as many of you as possible in less than a half hour.
Sorry about that. Indeed. Yes, indeed. And CC, what do you got going on?
Tomorrow night, we will be interviewing Matthew Tyler DeLeo. It's the second of our hopefully long-running interview series on his career in music, the ups and downs and the bands and all the breakups and the successes. And then on Friday, as usual, karaoke.
Indeed. And I hopefully will be able to joining you then. And Snow, what you got coming up? Or Jolly, I should say.
Well, I got a pretty busy week here, Tom. Let's see. A little later today, about an hour or so from now, we're going to do a quick Taco Tuesday, talking about a little bit of channel drama. So maybe if you're done hanging out over at Nick's, you can maybe stop by my channel. And also, Thursday night, we are doing Puff and Stuff, 420 special. Tom, if you want to stop by and smoke a little with us, you're more than welcome. That's me and
I will do my best.
Puff and Orge show. That'll be, I think around 9 your time, Tom. And then let's see, Friday night I'll be hanging over there with Loki on his Friday night show. Maybe some karaoke with CC. We'll see. And then Saturday night we're bringing back the Cotton Council season 2. So make sure you tune in for that. Should be a good one.
Awesome sauce. So, all right, this will redirect over to Toxic Tuesday. Hope to see you guys there, where we'll be talking some Tarantino in just about a half hour. So. Take care of yourselves and each other. See you on the flip side.
What?
That's what. I gotta find a button here.